Nancy's eyes met Tom's with shock and disbelief. "So what do you think?" she asks. "I don't know. I honestly don't know how I feel," replies Tom. Nancy and Tom had just gotten off the phone with Tom's brother Frank. Frank called to invite the family over to spend the holiday. The invite was unexpected and strange, since Tom and Frank had been estranged for years. "Well, I think that was a very sweet gesture and we should consider it," says Nancy. "You don't find it odd and a bit unnerving that he would call us after all these years?" asks Tom. "Odd, yes, but unnerving. Not sure why that would be the case unless you know something that I don't. I mean, he is your brother." Tom shakes his head and says, "I don't know. It feels strange to me." They go back and forth about the strangeness of the call and invitation. Eventually, Nancy convinces Tom to accept it. The drive to Frank's felt long and tiring. The family, including Tom, Nancy, and their 2 kids, would occasionally rest and reset before returning to the road. The road felt narrower, and the streetlights dim and unwelcoming. Thankfully, the kids were sound asleep in the back. "This feels a bit creepy, don't you think?" asks Nancy. "Yeah, just a tad," replies Tom. As the road starts to curve and whine, Tom is forced to turn his high beams on. "It's getting a bit dicey for me, so I think we should keep the high beams on," says Tom. "No objection there," she replies. "This drive, though? Why would they live so far out? And so secluded?" she questions, as she stares intently out the window and into the darkness ahead. "Not sure, but it sounds like it could be a conversation piece," says Tom. Nancy turns to her husband and laughs. "So, are we trying to find things to talk about and avoid the awkward silence you know is inevitable?" Tom starts to chuckle, and as he does, his young daughter, Susie, begins to awaken from her slumber. "Are we there yet, Dad?" says Susie. Nancy turns around and tells her daughter that they are almost there. Tom suddenly slows down and pivots his head forward to see something ahead. "Do you see that?" he asks. "Is that someone on the road?" From a distance, the heavy fog and the high beams appear to reflect what looks like a person crossing. "Stop the car!" yells Nancy. "I think that's a person!" The kids are now fully awake and clutching onto each other. "Mom! Dad! What's wrong?" Tom brings the car to a halt. All is quiet in the car as they stare intently at the figure on the road. Suddenly it begins to morph into what looks like an animal and starts to take off. They all scream in horror, and Tom revs the engine to try to get away as quickly as possible. "Dad! What was that?" screams Susie. "I don't know, but let's not stay around to find out." They begin to drive at a much faster rate of speed. The car is filled with heavy panting and nervousness across everyone's faces. Charles, the youngest, finally breaks the silence. "Mommy, I think I have to pee." "Can you hold it for a bit longer, sweetheart?" replies Nancy. "I'll try," says Charles. Nancy is flustered and grabs the phone to see how much longer they have on the road. "Looks like we have about another half an hour. Do you think you can hold it for that long?" Charles shoots his mom a look of intense nervousness and says, "That sounds long, Mom." "It's not, sweetheart. Please try to hold it for 30 minutes. It's too dangerous and far too dark to pull over anywhere," says Nancy. Suddenly, the phone navigation screen goes black. "Oh no!" She taps on the phone and presses the sides to get the screen back on. "What's wrong?" asks Tom. "I don't know, the phone just died," replies Nancy. "What? That's not possible. It's plugged into the car charger," says Tom. Nancy continues to poke and tap on the phone, attempting to revive it. She unplugs the charger and plugs it back in, but to no avail. "You know what? Let's just use my phone." Nancy starts to grab her purse and rummages for her phone. She finds it, and to her surprise, her phone is also unresponsive. "You've got to be kidding me." "What is it now?" asked Tom. "My phone won't turn on. It's dead like yours," asserts Nancy. "Let's keep our eyes peeled then. You said it's about another 30 minutes, so we should be there soon," says Tom as calmly as he can muster up. The next 20 minutes go by, and the family eagerly awaits signs of life and something to indicate that they are on the right path. As they approach the 30-minute mark, Tom starts to see what looks like the outline of a large home. "I think that's it. That has to be the home," shouts Tom. The family perks up with excitement. I really have to pee now, yells Charles. Just a few more minutes, we'll be there soon, says Nancy. Charles starts to anxiously tap on his thighs, trying his best to hold his pee. Tom pulls into the driveway. Let's say hi first, and then we'll come back for our belongings, says Nancy. The family starts to make their way over to Frank's home. They are greeted by Frank's young daughter, Audrey, and her older brother, Andy. Frank then slowly makes his way down the top of the grand staircase. Welcome, family, shouts Frank. Welcome to our humble abode. Frank gets to the bottom of the stairs and immediately goes in for a big hug with Tom. As Frank tightens his grip around Tom, he shoots Nancy an awkward grin. Oh, it's been so long, Tom. You've filled out a bit more, haven't you? Frank grabs him by the shoulder and starts to massage him playfully. It's good to see you, Tom, it really is. And Nancy, my sweet, beautiful sister-in-law, Nancy. Frank swings over and embraces Nancy with the same tight grip. We are happy to be here and appreciate the invite, she replies. Frank releases his grip on Nancy. Charles tugs at his mom's shirt and whispers, I gotta pee, Mom. She is frizzled. Oh yes. Frank, would you mind telling us where the restroom is? Poor Charles has been holding it for quite a bit. She laughs. Oh, of course, Andy, would you mind showing your cousin Charles where the restroom is? He asked. Andy starts to usher Charles toward the restroom. Shall we go get your luggage? Inquired Frank. Yeah, let's go do that, but, Frank, I hate to have to ask this, but where is Emily? Emily is Frank's wife, mother to Audrey and Andy. He fidgets a bit and smiles awkwardly. Oh, she's still getting ready for dinner. You'll see her at dinner time, he replies. Is there anything I can help her with? Asks Nancy. No help is needed, but we appreciate the offer, he replies. Frank and Tom make their way to the car and back to the house with luggage in tow. Frank and the kids show them their accommodations and tell them dinner will be ready soon. Once inside their guest bedroom, Nancy waltzes over to Tom and gently whispers, Something feels off. Tom rushes over to the door and locks it. Yeah, I know, he quickly snaps back. Should we even bother to unpack? She asks. Let's just see how dinner pans out and we'll go from there, says Tom. Nancy nods in agreement. Next door to them is Charles's and Susie's room. A loud thumping sound could be heard outside the guest bedrooms. Tom opens the door and looks over the railing. Frank, is everything okay? He shouts. Yes, we're fine. Dinner should be ready soon, he yells back up. Tom returns to the guest bedroom and shakes his head in confusion. What was that? Asks Nancy. I think Frank was moving something into the dining room. Suddenly, Nancy is startled by Audrey and Andy. Oh my goodness, I didn't see you two standing there. They remain emotionless, and Andy says, Dad says to be downstairs in 5 minutes. They quickly exit the room as Nancy shoots Tom a look of concern. This is getting stranger by the minute, she says. Nancy peeks her head into Susie's and Charles's room and asks if they're ready to head downstairs. They all make their way down to the dining area. Susie's nose begins to twitch a bit as they get closer to the bottom of the stairs. What's that smell? She mumbled. Nancy and Tom start to get whiffs of the same odor, but can't determine what it could be. Come on in, guys, shouts Frank. The family slowly makes their way inside the dining room, and they immediately notice a figure at the far end of the table tucked away in the darkness. Dear God, says Tom, as Nancy and the kids hold their reactive need to vomit. Out of the darkness and thrust into the light is a very deceased Emily. Susie tugs at her mom as Charles lets out a horrifying squeal. Tom and Nancy quickly grab their kids and make a run for it. The family grabs their belongings and flees as quickly as possible. Tripping over one another, they rush to the bottom of the stairs and quickly to the car. Frank yells behind them, I don't recommend driving home this late. It's not safe out there. Tom helps his family into the car and turns around to scream, Go to hell, Frank! Tom revs the engine, and they are back on the road as quickly as they arrive. Frank shuffles back to the dining area, and the kids ask if the family has left. He shakes his head in disappointment that they have. Audrey starts to let out a whimper and begins to tear up. I was hoping to have a new friend, she replies sadly. Frank leans into his daughter and wipes a tear from her cheek. You'll have a friend, and she will be special like Mommy, he says. Andy gets up, walks towards the dining room window, and stares intently into the darkness. Is that because he's going to bring them back to us, Dad? Asks Andy. Of course he will. He always does. Just like how he brought Mommy back when she didn't want to stay with us anymore, says their dad. Audrey cracks a large, cynical smile.
Please like and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to click on the bell icon to get new video updates.